If you're a woman in Sierra Leone, you are 183 times more likely to die in childbirth than a woman in Switzerland. Almost 40,000 girls under the age of 18 become child brides every day in Africa. Well, in Africa and other developing countries, including Asia, with a greater chance of suffering abuse from their husbands because they are not empowered. Here's another one. Only a little over 20% of poor rural girls in Africa complete primary education, and fewer than 10% finish lower secondary school. That's a lot of girls dropping out of school and not finishing secondary school. Madagascar has 144 times more out-of-school girls than Germany, which has, however, a population 3.5 times more than the population of Madagascar. So Germany has 3 times more the population of Madagascar, and yet Madagascar has 144 times more girls out of school. The number of girls enrolled in primary school in the UK, which has a population of 64 million, is equal to the number of girls who are out of primary school in Ethiopia. And yet Ethiopia has a population of 91 million people. So there's more girls in the UK than the number of girls out of school in Ethiopia. 2/3 of the 774 million people worldwide who are illiterate are women. So 66% of illiteracy goes to women. Again, in sub-Saharan Africa, 86% of women are in vulnerable employment, meaning seasonal jobs, temporary jobs, part-time jobs, and so on. I could go on and on and on with all these kinds of statistics, but I think what is important is that we start thinking about what to do and what to do about it and how to go about it. Of the adults living with HIV and AIDS in sub-Saharan Africa, 58% are women. So again, we see the imbalance when it comes to diseases like HIV and AIDS.
The latest statistic I saw was 36% of all women here in South Africa have HIV/AIDS, and there's a number of reasons for that. In the Khayelitsha area, I'm sure that number increases quite a bit because of sexual violence, gender-based violence. And one of the reasons is that there isn't a structure to keep people safe. So gender-based violence is a huge issue here. Equality around employment is a huge issue. The way women are treated in general, men tend to have the power base.
But I think what is important for us here today is that when you're born as a girl in Africa, you're more likely to be denied an education, you're more likely to suffer poor health, you're more likely to have no job or a badly paying job. And as a mother, you are 100 times more likely to die while you're giving life.
Hello, I'm Natasha Mbwana from Tanzania and Botswana.
My name is Nomsa and I'm from Zimbabwe.
My name is Okolo Kineji. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya.
I'm Rama Larian and I'm from Egypt.
My name is Gigi. I'm from South Africa.
My name is Nicole Gwindi and I'm from Zimbabwe.
I'm Chabet Kuntai. I come from Kenya, and I'm a Maasai from Kenya, and that plays a really huge role to how I came to be a feminist. Because the Maasai are still very traditional in certain aspects, so I've grown in a community and I've seen like female genital mutilation happening to my friends, and I've also seen early marriages, and when it's not early marriages and FGM, which is caused by culture, then it's something caused by mindset where like girls will go to school, but by the time they finish their primary school, they're like, oh, we're done, now let's get married.
It's just gender equality across all genders and the elimination of patriarchy in society.
Feminism is about saying, hey, I'm a woman and that's okay, and that's actually a good thing.
My view on feminism is basically both women and men now vying for the rights of women to have equality in society, gender equality. So be it gender equality in terms of job allocations, like the number of women working in the workplace, or the social attitude towards women as well, like how women are treated in society. So it's trying to achieve equality in those two spectrums.
It's a definition that's constantly changing for me, but at the heart of it is just that desire for equality between men and women, and for everyone to be free to make their choices.
Empowering women, not oppressing men.
Empowering women with the same rights and the same opportunities that men already have.
The greatest thing that ever happened to me was realizing that I might just have been created for feminism. So it's like sometimes there are those moments in life where I feel like that Mandela moment of this, I am prepared to die. And that's sometimes how I feel about, most times actually, about feminism. I'm prepared to die for this to pass, for equality to pass. And
are you that woman who's constantly reminding, because others maybe don't know, they oblivious to this information, gender inequality doesn't exist in their world. I mean, they've never heard of it. Sexism, chauvinism, patriarchy, those are just big words. So that's the question. And the responsibility is not just only on us as women, but also on men.
Large part of it, having just talked to guys in general, is because that's not their reality. So when they hear these stories, they're like, oh, that's the exception to the rule, or that's not used, so how can you use that statistic against us? And sometimes guys just generally feel threatened about these sort of things, which is sad because they assume that feminism is this thing that's like out to like get all the male positions in the world, and it's not at all helping them or affecting them.
Feminism is not a fight between men and women. It's not a fight that we are victims to any oppressions, and instead it's a power that we are powerful and we can take part in everything that we want.
As much as there's empowerment, it doesn't mean that you should now try and compete with a man. We have very distinct roles. Them being distinct doesn't make one more significant than the other. As a woman, you can be significant in your own special way, so there's no need to be aggressively feminist. As with men, just because women are coming with a new perspective, with a fresh perspective, their significance is not jeopardizing, or is not meant to jeopardize your significance in society.
As you know, 20 years ago, the world came together at the Beijing for the 4th World Conference on Women in Beijing. 189 governments adopted the Beijing Platform for Action and a fundamental roadmap of gender equality and women's empowerment and human rights. However, 20 years after the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, no country in the world has achieved gender equality. In many of the critical areas of concern, the Platform for Action details progress that has been unacceptably slow. And while opportunities have expanded for women and girls, the most marginalized women and girls are being left behind. In particular, violence against women in public spaces, in homes, and in the workplace remains a global pandemic.
In Egypt is ranked the highest country in sexual harassment, and I saw that. I've been through that, and sexual harassment, verbally, physically, even with a look, and I saw that every day in the streets, and that's something that really hurts me, because I can't really talk about education, and I can't really talk about how educated you are and how you should get an access to education, and you're not respected while walking in the street. I think we in Egypt, we have a long history of getting women into into power and women into education and getting women in. And there was in the 1960s, after getting independence, the movement of having women especially get to be ambassadors, get to be ministers, get to be all of that, was really hyped up, and it was successful because we really shifted from women at home and women always submissive to the man, to a whole another era of we can be teachers and we can be ministers and we can be ambassadors and can be businesswomen. So, and I think this is what the highest point that women in Egypt in the 1960s got their rights, and then from there we kind of, again, it deteriorated the situation of women, I think because also of the economic situation in Egypt.
In our traditional societies, some of them were matriarchal. Okay, I don't think feminism is about bringing up a matriarchal society, because it's not about now it's the women who are supposed to dominate the men. I think we need to find the balance, but there are societies where women had a say, where women could actually make decisions, and there were leaders and you would obey them. And I think that's where feminism was, not even started, was. And with time, for example, in politics class, we were talking about how a lot of colonialism came with patriarchy. For example, the British and the whole monarchy system, where women leading, and so there are all these leadership councils and things where men got the power back, and not back, but got the power. But
the history of feminism is very controversial, let's say, with a lot of anger and a lot of anti-male sentiments, that even though it's evolved, a lot of people still hang on to what it was in the past and just automatically think feminist equals anti-male, female sort of sentiments. Yeah.
For us, it's been meshed up with apartheid because I am South African. So I think the biggest movement, we were celebrating a couple of days ago International Women's Day, right? South Africa doesn't celebrate International Women's Day. We've actually got our own Women's Day on the 9th of August. And that was the day where both black and white women marched to the union buildings in Pretoria to demand that they don't have to carry a dompas. And what a dompas was basically an identity document for all women that says you are authorized to be at a certain place at a certain time. So they actually marched to the union buildings, and they were opposing them, and they started burning them. And on that day, it actually was the dompas for women, for all women and for all colors, was actually abolished. So the point for us, we signify, we've actually got a saying that says, "Wathindi umfazi, wathindi imbongolo." And what that means is basically, you strike a woman, you strike a rock. So it becomes this whole heritage of just being women, and that's where it started, and that's when women started standing together beyond just race and looking at getting their rights.
The one thing that really touches me was when this girl asked, can a woman be president? And the question is, yeah, of course you can be president. You can do whatever you like. But in reality, yeah, you can be. But it's a lot harder for you. So in my rural home, not that people are not progressive, but we still have that culture that we had. And some of the culture is good, yeah, and it's something we pride in. If you see the Maasai's dancing and jumping and very nice community values and all those things. But then the problem comes in, for example, where the women and the children are in one category, and then there's a man, and what the man says goes, and that's just the way it is, for example. And I experience it at home where my father has the last word. Whether it's right or wrong, he has the last word, kind of thing. And sometimes it's good to have at least someone, if it's about college, I better convince my dad, But sometimes it's very distancing, because it comes a time, for example, I feel it's because of the culture that I can't really interact with my dad directly without going through my mom, for example, because there's just that hierarchy.
it was a situation where we were having a discussion, and there were some West African staff members in the discussion. So I spoke up, and there were other women as well. I think we were 3 women, and they were having a conversation between the 2 of them, and the one lady spoke up, and they didn't flinch. They didn't even acknowledge that she said anything. And then I also said something which was pertaining to the conversation, or which was like probably a response to what they were discussing. And they also didn't acknowledge that I said anything. I found it very, very strange. And later on, when I was speaking to my friends, we then, it was the one lady was from West Africa. And she said, in the West African culture, when men are talking, women are not supposed to speak, or they're not supposed to want to be part of the conversation unless, they asked of their opinion.
So my mom I would say, is more patriarchal about stuff. Like, for example, my brother isn't allowed to cook, even though I could honestly say he's like the best cook of us all. Even though he's 12, he's like the best cook ever since he was like 6. But he's not allowed to cook because he's a guy.
We live back home. It's called Kilgoris. We have a house there, and then we have other houses, So one day, I think I was still very young, we went to the neighbors, and so after circumcision, there's a whole ceremony, and they sit down, and everyone is happy and stuff like that. And it's a time where FGM is no longer being allowed by the government, and it's illegal. But we went and visited, and the girls were seated, and they were so happy. And I was like, why are you so happy? And thinking back, I feel lucky that I'm aware that it's oppressive. But what do you say to someone who sees it as normal and okay? And that has been my struggle of trying to find a way. I wanted them to know that no, someone does not have the right to remove a part of your body because they remove the clitoris, and it's just, it's the fan supposed to do for the husband. Okay, that's the whole point of it, to repress them sexually. So it doesn't add up, and it's just that I have never visited after female circumcision event ever again, at least in my neighborhood, which is really nice. But I hear of other tribes like the Samburu who still do it, and early marriages and things like that. But it's very helpful to see the rescue centers being built for the girls who escape, for example, female circumcision and early marriages. And there are people helping out, and the organizations that are stopping it. Because December is a time where female circumcision happens. So I don't know if it was a UN, I'm not so sure about the organization. And the advertisement that kept coming of making people aware the female circumcision was happening, and that they should report it and they should stop it. I was like, at least someone's thinking about it and getting the word out. And I think that's where it all begins.
I've been against polygamy and traditional basically girls being married to older men at a really young age. Although for some people, when I posed this in the air that being a problem, I was told that for the community itself, they may not see it as a problem, but the problem would be now children getting pregnant and having babies when their bodies aren't ready to have babies. So it's every community has a different perspective on things. In Kenya, what happens is when I'm with my sister or my friends, and we're just walking the road, they're usually either a bunch of men who are sitting on the road or just who are passing, but they always make comments. So for example, there was a time I was walking with my friend, and she was in a summer dress, and there were a bunch of men who were seated on the sidewalk, and they started whistling and commenting. and we went to now the bus stage, and we're standing there, and a lady approached us and told my friend that she should cover herself up, otherwise she's provoking these men to do something. Although, like, when me and my friend had a discussion about it afterwards, we're like, it's unfair because there's nothing wrong with the way she's dressed, but rather there's something wrong with the men's mentalities instead.
Also, I cut my hair, and that's really not accepting in Egypt, because oh, you look like a boy. I'm like, this is not the point. And I cut it because I wanted to show people I wanted everybody in the street to change their mindset about gender. It's not the typical picture of a woman with a long hair and with makeup and with dresses and stuff. No, I don't. This is not the box that you're boxing women in. That I cut my hair. I want to say no. This is me. I'm still a woman with a short hair.
Even in the scenario that, as it is, especially in Kenya as well, you find women who oppress women as well. So like, you find women who are like, oh, why, like, oh, that girl deserves to like get hit on or get like raped simply because of how she dressed, as opposed to seeing it as the men's mentality. So it's like, also like men play a part in changing the mentalities of other men and themselves as well.
I don't think that the way to go about feminism is to victimize ourselves, but to empower ourselves instead.
When females in general do things, it's like, oh my gosh, they're really good female this. It's not like they're a really good writer, like, oh, you're a really good female writer, or you're a really good female soccer player, as opposed to just being a soccer player.
I do believe that it's not a solution unless the mindset is changed, unless the people believe that, yeah, we actually need this kind of thing. And I think that's the struggle, and sometimes I feel like it's just a matter of time. So as generations go on, it keeps on fading, and like you'll realize my generation is less accepting of that, or once people go to school, education helps to fight some bits of that. So every county, so we have 47 counties in Kenya, and every county now has a women representative. But my problem with such reforms is that you're doing it for political correctness or sometimes for development. And sometimes I think it's very much supposed to be intrinsic. It's supposed to be a belief, yeah. Even if having women get the same salary as men, it will not equate to economic development.
And culturally and traditionally, men are superior. So it's not just legally, in fact in South Africa, I can actually say legally, we're going about it the right way. The legal system does protect women. Even politically, we've got women who are in high positions, but then it comes to the mindsets of the actual people, because our constitution, fantastic. The actual implementation of the constitution, that's when it falls apart, because a lot of people have got I'm going to be bold about this and say a Western constitution, but an African way of living, and those two don't connect, because African society is very patriarchal. It does believe in the whole, the man is the head of the house. I'm not saying they don't acknowledge women. Women are given their place, but it is usually lesser than men. So we've got quite a large number of population that believes in the traditional way of doing things. So it is quite hard to then be like, hey, move, the woman is equal. So we've got quite a large number of people still struggling, and that's why for the next 20 years, I highly doubt we'll see a female president, because the men still believe that a woman shouldn't be representing me, she's just a woman, you know. So quite a large number of our population believe that.
Mm-hmm. I've come to appreciate that it's not as black and white as I thought it was, because on one side we have women that may not know that they're being oppressed, and then on the other side we have subtle ways of oppressing women every day, and we reproduce these cultures every day when we tell girls that they're supposed to dress in a certain way, they're supposed to address men in a certain way. apart from Africa, the world over still has the world has a part to play in sending a new message or relaying a new message to children as well around gender roles. Because I believe that some of the messaging and some of the context really hit kids at such an early age, to the point where when they're older, when they're teenagers or when they're preteens, it then becomes ingrained in them. And now having to reverse what they have been socialized to think might be more challenging than just sending a new, fresh message around these gender roles.
There's this test, I don't know if either of you even know about it, but literally, a film has to pass one requirement, which is there has to be 2 or more female characters who are named. So like, it's not like, ooh, minority characters somewhere in the background who are talking to each other, but 2 named female characters who have a conversation about anything other than men. And the majority of the films in the world have failed this test.
It won't come easy, but it is sure worth it. For me right now, I'm at a point in my life where even when I go home, I think my cousins still face the whole, oh, you're a woman, you should do that. But my family is pretty much sure when they go, it's Gigi, so nobody even tries. I think you teach people how to treat you. So in all your actions, be what you must be conscious that you are teaching people how to treat you. So stand up for what you believe in. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but there will come a point where people don't even bother you anymore because they just know that that is who you are. So I'm at that point in my family where my family is like, please don't even start, it's Gigi, and everybody just lets me be. And I think though that's come with a lot of backlash, but it's worth it. For me, it's worth it.
It's almost like a life purpose to help us get there, to help me get there. Because I also realize feminism, it has more to do with the individual and changing some of the things I've had to grow with. The mental kind of shift that needs to happen.
It's important for people to recognize that men and women are equal, but that they play different roles, and that's okay. And I think that the different roles has been interpreted into discrimination, and sometimes it's been misinterpreted. But I think it's okay for us to have different roles and for us to embrace that. I think that that's the key to abolishing some of the issues we face between men and women. If we recognize that we're equal, but sometimes we just play different roles, and that's okay. And appreciate that.
Last week I had a conversation with a group of boys who thought that the conversation started by just speaking about how they would want their wives to behave when they're married. And one of the guys said, oh, I'm going to be going to work and my wife is obviously going to be cooking and cleaning and looking after the kids. She doesn't have to work. And it was it came so naturally for him to understand his role as to be, the breadwinner, and the woman's role to be housekeeping and so forth. And then I asked, oh, so what about if your wife wants to, also pursue a career or do dual roles of going to work and looking after the house? And he was so shocked, like he hadn't thought about it. Or maybe he had been taught that he's supposed to be the breadwinner and a woman is supposed to is not supposed to go to work. Men have a very big role to also play in that they can, if for example a man or a group of men were to rally behind women and say they're actually saying to other men that, look men, we need these women, or look men who are not as progressive as us, let's get behind these women, let's promote them, let's empower them.
Me as a man, I'm willing to talk to other men and also talk to other women as well, because I've had women making statements that they think are feminists but are really contradictory.
The boys in our community, like I went to a school where if they were missing any pens or they needed homework to be done, it was like, oh, go ask a girl, oh, go ask a girl. So we were always looked upon as, oh, you haven't got your life sorted out, go ask a girl to fix it. So I remember just in class, a basic example of this boy wanted to do his homework and he wasn't finished, and he's like, can I please name my book? I'm like, no, but he's like, you're a girl, you're supposed to do that. I'm like, no, I'm not supposed to do that. So it goes from being at home and it comes into school where people still carry the same attitude of, just because you're a woman, you're supposed to do things for me, you're supposed to oblige to whatever I feel on that day that you should.
I know girls on a personal level who are very happy to be housewives. They actually aspire to be housewives, and they think that that's what it means to be a woman.
Women who are ostracized because they can't give birth. And so, I mean, women are given a particular role. So there's this tradition that a woman is supposed to be at home, is supposed to be cooking and cleaning, and that's it. Like, you're not even supposed to go to school. And I think, and to bear children, basically. And so if you can't bear children, it's almost as if you're not a real woman. And I think that for me is quite close to my heart, because it begs the question, what is a real woman? And what does she look like? Is she just a childbearing machine? Or is she someone that can add value to society even without a child?
So like if it's for a wedding, for example?
A traditional wedding,
yeah.
So it's an order. While we're drinking, we will get the bucket. It's starting to the old men's, and then going to the young ones.
Okay,
yes.
okay. Always the oldest,
yes.
And then.
Even here in the local pubs, this is the way they're drinking.
Okay. So he is the oldest.
No, this is the oldest. But now, since I want to show you the way we're drinking, yes.
Okay. All right.
And the women don't drink in here?
No, you don't stay here while you're a woman. You have to take it to your place or outside. Not in a local pubs. The place is only for the men.
Okay. So are they going to discuss important matters?
Yes.
We need you all beautiful women, eh? To come and encourage us, to come and say to these girls, it is okay, it's fine, it's not where you come from, it's where you're going. To come and say the situation is this now, but it doesn't stay the way it is. It can still change. I love this. Poverty is sexist. Poverty, wow. Can it be just sexist, you know? Can it really? Because we are raising girls. You see the potential in every one of them. You see the strength in any one of them. And all we need to do is encourage these girls. Back these girls up. And not just the Makeba girls. Every girl out there who's had trouble with life. Who's had trouble with being 15 cispenny. Who's had trouble with being a young girl. Who's had trouble just being accepted, because sometimes we deal with acceptance in different ways. We deal with acceptance because I'm a big, fully figured. Sometimes we deal with it because I'm shorter. Sometimes we deal with it because I don't have parents. Sometimes we deal with it in different ways. And if we could just gather together as women and help these girls and tell these girls, it's okay. We love you. We appreciate you.
In rural Zimbabwe, a lot of families would actually take the girls to school in the event that there was famine or there was not a good harvest. The next year, school fees would only be made available for girls to go to school, because the rationale behind that was a girl needs to go to school more than a boy, because a boy society will always make room for an uneducated boy and not make room for an uneducated girl.
Like, a lot of girls are actually really, really intellectual and have so much potential. And if you keep oppressing them, then it doesn't make sense. And it's just girls who have more talent than me, or more skill than me, or more intellectual ability than me, that obviously girls are not necessarily even on the same level as guys. Sometimes they're even more, I can see more advanced than guys as well. Or it varies. Like, it's such a generalization to assume that, like, that girls are deserve less rights than guys.
I've heard a lot of stories about women in North Africa still being very, very marginalized and oppressed, to the point of, girls not being given the opportunity to go to school. The bare minimum is to take a child to school, to educate a girl would be an investment for life. And I believe that if you educate a girl, you're probably educating a community.
We are 50.
I am 15. I'm 15. I'm 15. Poverty is sexist.
Thank you.
Poverty is sexist.
Thank you.
Unless we start to deal with the global injustice of gender equality, we will not be able to overcome the sexism of poverty. The One Campaign has just released a report. Actually, Poverty is Sexist is the title of the report. Why girls and women must be at the heart of the fight to end extreme poverty. And the report shows that poverty and gender clearly go hand in hand. While the structural, social, political, and economic barriers women face in the developing countries are staggering, 2015 is an amazing and unique opportunity for us to change that.
Africa. Because the facts show that extreme poverty has already been cut by 60% and can be virtually eliminated by 2030, but only if we act with urgency now. And that's why we're launching this very special campaign, Poverty is Sexist, because women are, one of our biggest resources, our biggest resource actually, and, by fighting gender inequality, we'll be able to finally eradicate poverty. Of course, the campaign, one was co-founded by Bono, and we raise public awareness and work with political leaders to combat AIDS and preventable diseases, increase investment in agriculture and nutrition, and demand greater transparency so governments are accountable to their citizens.
I really like being in IMOAD. So basically, it's a student enterprise. It was first founded with the aim to fight gender-based violence at the grassroots, so like with the kids. But then it's grown, and right now what we're doing is teaching life skills and social skills to young girls. And the whole vision about it is to form independent young women who can make decisions that will affect their life positively. We go there once a week to just teach the girls. We've had lessons on time management, goal setting, confidence, anger management, and so many things, and we get to interact with them, we get to bond with them, we get to be there for them in case of them going through things and they want to confide in us, which is it's really been fun working with the girls. But we reached this point where we realized also the guys need to be involved, because part of the problem, it's not the thing about taking the girls and talking to them. Sometimes it makes them feel like the victims, which is not really the case. And I think there's a need to bring the guys into the discussion as well. And we just talk about it because it hurts them as much as it hurts the girls as well. So talk about sexual objectification with them. We'll talk about reproductive health with them. We'll talk about academic excellence with them, spirituality, all these things that make someone. And so that's basically what our discussions are usually about. But I think the overriding theme of it is just being proud of your authentic self and knowing that you don't have to succumb to so many expectations from society. You just need to thrive. Really about making them aware that we have that freedom to choose. And even if constitutionally or realistically we do not seem to have that freedom to choose, we should. And that's where the whole confidence comes in. have that confidence to ask for what you want, to go for what you want, to get what you want.
So I believe feminism, just like any other cause, we should look at it like the concept of feminism is like groups not oppressing other groups. And I feel like as a society we should try more and more to encourage people not to oppress others, be it because of race, gender, sexuality, or anything along those lines. I believe that like with feminism especially, by like looking at history and how women have suffered for the longest time, especially under the pressure of now men as well, I feel like it's about time for people to start changing perceptions. You know, like I feel like this is the time when people can be most impactful, especially because of the internet and like the connectivity and the rate at which globalization is happening. This is the time when you can change people's preconceptions, challenge stereotypes, and look.
The achievement of the gender equality will require significant changes globally and at different levels, even here in South Africa. Time has already shown laws on their own are simply not enough. South Africa also needs to change structures and the different negative impacts that are institutionalized in our institutions that are permitting and perpetuating discrimination of women every day of their lives. Change is required in the way institutions function and set priorities. Change in the way women and girls and boys think and act, at home and at school and at work. It is required. Put simple, South Africa needs to change.
So it would be a question that has to go back to the community. Certainly we can educate people about ways other communities in Africa have equalized the process and equalized access. But it really is about what do they feel they need right now. It might not be the most important issue when you're trying to feed your 2 or 3 or 4 children at home. It might not be your most important issue if your kids are sick or you're unhealthy or you can't find proper sanitation. So it depends what they feel is important at the moment. But it is a huge issue around Africa, and I know that there are many donors trying to focus on gender issues and trying to give power back to the women. Liberia would be a great example, a little further away than South Africa, but the women got together to create a practice of peace, and they forced the men to do what they needed to do in order to gain peace, so that their children would be safe and they would be safe.
And because once one woman gets there, it becomes more possible for others to get there.
I think we'll just grow stronger if we stand together, honestly.
I think the thing about feminism is not just saying it, but being able to like express it in actions, in words. Like, you're not undermining me because I'm a woman, even in the little things kind of things. And it actually makes me very happy because it gives me hope. Like, this generation of ours shouldn't even be trying to argue or like dispute the fact that we are all equal, and that's where we should be striving for.
Say it's time to get with the times. Because today there's this, if I think about leadership, I think there are women who are in positions of power, positions of leadership, and they're doing so well. They're bringing fresh perspectives to otherwise male-dominant industries and areas of expertise.
Imagine your daughter from 20 years from now and how easy it would be for her to live because of what you fought for. So that's your legacy to all the upcoming women. And for me, I think beyond everything, seeing the next generation have it that much easier is what drives me.
You're a human first.
I am mine before I am ever anyone else's.
I just wanna say